Good morning. It's just a little bit before 10, so we'll give everyone a minute or two to get on. Hey, Elijah. I said we're just going to give everyone a minute or two to get on. What's up, Reagan and Wes? Hey, Zach. Morning, Q. I miss y'all. I'm not sure who that is. Who is Cherry Rain? Oh, Natalie. Okay. Hey, Natalie. All right. We are going to get started reading. We ended where, hey, Natalie. We ended where Marta suggested to John that they go and look for the scenery that Jacob was painting. Remember, Marta said, what if he's from that area? And John said, you think he's from a blue forest? And Marta said, don't be silly. So they were going to go on a little adventure. And they said, we're going to go look for the scene he painted. Chapter 32. And so the next morning they set off, the three of them in the truck, along with the beagle, who leaped in at the last minute and snuggled by the boy's feet. They planned to wander along the back roads for a few hours, looking for the scene on the wall of the barn. They turned down narrow roads they had not traveled before. They rolled through small towns with stores and abandoned gas stations. They passed neglected shacks and buildings and cast off rusty vehicles and appliances. They passed many barns, some small and rustic, and some larger ones with sunken roofs and tilting frames. The first time they came to a wooded area bordered by a creek, John slowed the truck and Marta caught her breath, sat back in her seat, and gripped the door handle. The boy was looking at a nearby house. He pointed to the porch. What? Oh no, what? Marta said. Is it? The boy smiled and waved his hand at the porch. Is it? Do you know that place? But the boy had already turned away and was reaching for the dog, rubbing his head. John said, see, look there. It's probably just those chickens he was waving at. Oh, thank goodness. I know, John said. I know. So I think Marta was saying thank goodness because deep down, she doesn't want Jacob to find where he came from because they've really fallen in love with him. And I think they'd be really sad to see him go. And on they drove through the countryside, through small towns, past several pastures and creeks, and none of them seemed especially familiar to Jacob. When they returned home that afternoon and the boy had run up to the pasture to greet the cows and the goats, Marta said, let's have a big dinner tonight. I'm starved. Let's have fried chicken and mashed potatoes and green beans with bacon. And oh, I'll make a pie. We haven't had an apple pie in ages. It feels so good to be back home today, doesn't it, John? Doesn't it feel good to be home? Yes, it does. So I think we can infer that Marta and John are saying it feels good to be home because Jacob still got to come back home with them. Chapter 33. On Saturday, they drove to the park where they usually met Lucy and her mother. Marta had resolved that she was going to tell Lucy's mother the whole truth about the boy. It'll be good to get it out in the open, she told John. If you think so. Lucy and Jacob were by now fast friends, attached to each other as if they'd known each other for years. Lucy would run up to him, grab his hand, and off they would go, dashing to the swings or slide or climbing bars. She's so motherly, Lucy's mother said. Look how she holds Jacob's hand. It's cute. Yes, well, you should really come to our house sometime. Just leave Jacob for the day. They'd have so much fun. Would that be okay with, his family? Uh, well, or if you'd rather, I could bring Lucy to your house. There's something I want to tell you first, Marta said. Her hands fluttered helplessly. She looked around for John, but he had already returned to the truck. Sure, what is it? Is something wrong? No, no, not wrong. Feeling as if she could not turn back, Marta barreled on ahead, telling Lucy's mom about finding the boy on the porch and not knowing where he had come from or who had left him. Lucy's mother sat up straight. You found him on your porch? You don't know who left him? You don't know when they're coming back? That's right. But how strange, how odd. That's a bit creepy, don't you think? Creepy? Well, I wouldn't say that. But what are you going to do? Try to find his family. But if you do, have you thought about that? What happens, Marta, if you do find them? I don't know. There. Shh. She put a protective arm around Marta. What a strange thing. Chapter 34. Again, they drove out into the surrounding countryside, this time with renewed urgency and renewed dread. John, I have to know. Yes, I have to know where he came from, how he ended up here, what his life was like. How could anyone part with him if anyone is coming back for him? They drove up and down the hills, along the winding roads, past miles and miles of dense trees and small streams. So beautiful here, Marta said. She tapped the boy's arm. Beautiful here, don't you think? The boy gazed out the window and tapped his chest. Marta looked right into the boy's eyes. You understand so much, don't you? The boy nodded. I wish I knew what was in your head. I wish I knew what you were thinking at all time. At the crest of the hill, John pulled over. Let's walk a bit, he said. It's too nice of a day to be cooped up inside this truck. And so they walked along a trail that led from the top of the hill to a creek below. The boy and the beagle ran ahead, dashing off the path from time to time, and then circling back again. This is nice, Marta said. Yes, John agreed. I wish it could always be like this. Over the next 2 weeks, they drove out into new areas, and each time they stopped the truck to walk a scenic path or explore a creek. On one such day, they parked near a public beach at a small lake, well concealed by dense woods. From the beach, they tossed stones into the water and dug in the sand. The beagle chased the boy up and down the deserted, narrow beach. After a picnic, they followed the path through the trees and ate from blackberry bushes. The dog found a ragged red rubber ball and brought it to the boy's feet. The boy threw the ball. The dog retrieved it and brought it back, enjoying the game. On one throw, the ball bounced off the path into the leaves, and when the dog returned, he brought a dirty, sodden child's shoe. Oh, some poor child has lost its shoe, Marta said. Leave it, John said. It's filthy. The boy seemed intrigued by the shoe, turning it this way and that way. He sat down on the ground and took off his own shoe and tried to wedge his foot into the dirty shoe. What? What are you? Leave it, John repeated. Don't be silly. It's filthy and it's too small anyway. Can't you see that? But the boy tried again to force his foot into the shoe. Cut that out, John said. He knelt to put the boy's own shoe back on and tossed the dirty shoe to the side of the trail. They had barely moved on when the boy returned for the shoe, clutching it in his hand. Why? Marta asked. Why do you want that old shoe? The boy tapped his foot and raced on. Funny kid, Marta said, wanting that old shoe. Yeah, funny kid, John agreed. Chapter 35. The boy did not want to part with the shoe. He carried it with him that day, took it to bed with him that night, and toted it all around the next day. While he painted on the barn wall, the shoe rested on a stool beside him. When the beagle snatched the shoe, the boy gently removed it from the dog's mouth and wedged it in his pocket. And I agree, the shoe must seem pretty important. It was a flimsy canvas shoe, the sort a child might wear in the summer. Its sole was worn, the canvas was stained with mud and mold. It took some convincing for the boy to allow Marta to wash it. He stood by the tin tub while it soaked. He took the stiff brush from Marta and scrubbed the shoe, rinsed it, and pegged it to the line to dry. He checked on the shoe every so often that John said, "It's just a shoe, it's not going anywhere." But the boy seemed startled. He tapped rapidly on John's arm, an urgent and insistent message. What? What? The boy gave John a look that John had never seen before. Was it disappointment? Was the boy disappointed in John? Okay, John said. It's not just any old shoe. To Marta, later, John said, "The shoe is bothering me." And Marta said, "Don't be silly, John. It's just a shoe." So I think John is realizing that there is some connection between Jacob and the shoe. The next day, they returned to the spot where they'd found the shoe. It had rained the night before, and the earth was dark, the leaves dripping here and there. The sky was overcast, the lake flat and gray. Again, the boy and the beagle ran ahead. The boy had insisted on carrying a knapsack with the shoe inside. So he is not letting the shoe out of his sight. He's now carrying it with him. "I thought we were going to try different places each time," Marta said. "I know, but there's something about this spot. It's nice here, don't you think?" "If it's so nice, then why do you look so worried?" "Worried? I'm not worried." The boy and the beagle roamed in and out of the trees and off and on the path. Before they reached the beach, the boy returned to their sides, holding aloft the shoe, wet and stained with mud. "You got it dirty again? Why'd you do that?" John asked. The boy shrugged the knapsack off his shoulder, opened it, and retrieved the clean shoe. He held it next to the dirty one. "The other shoe," Marta said. John leaned in closer for a look. "What do you know? You found the other one." The boy held the shoes close to his chest. Then he knelt with a stick. He drew in the dirt a figure of a child. Next to it, he drew a taller child. He placed the found shoes at the feet of the first, smaller figure. He sat down, took off his own shoes, and placed them at the feet of the taller child. "I don't get it," John said. "What's he trying to tell us?" The boy thought a minute. Then he scratched out the figures and he started again. He drew a child in the dirt. At the child's feet, he placed the found shoes. "You did that already," John said. Then the boy made the same figure, so the same child, bigger. He elongated the body, the arms, and the legs, and he made the feet larger. Now he removed the found shoes and placed his own shoes at the feet of the drawing. "The boy grew," Marta said. "His feet grew. He needed larger shoes, right?" "Well, of course," John said. "If your feet grow, you need—" Oh, Marta knelt beside the boy and lifted the found shoes. "Are these your shoes?" The boy nodded, and as he did so, he exhaled deeply, as if he were releasing volumes of trapped air. So Jacob was able to communicate with them that those were indeed his shoes. And when he did that, he let out a big exhale, like he was finally relieved that they knew something about him. All right. Check your Canvas inbox for a link to Zoom, and we will talk further about this. All right, I'll see you all in a little bit. Bye.